Good morning, Goose.
Howdy folks, welcome back to Goose Unlimited. I am your host, Jay Davis. Today we are going to be going over an LR308 project. The concept of this project is that we're going to take relatively low budget parts with some good quality parts to see if we can come out with a precision LR308. For those of you who are not familiar, the LR308 is the DPMS pattern of semi-automatic sporting rifle. They are not AR-10s, which is an Armalite rifle. Some parts are interchangeable between the two, but the AR-10 is not completely interchangeable with the LR308. Mainly the upper and lower receivers are not interchangeable. So for these future videos, you'll hear me say LR308 and try not to use AR-10 for that purpose. So for this build, we're actually starting off with two different rifles. The rifle at the bottom is the rifle that we're primarily going to be using. That is my personal Palmetto State Armory PSA-10. I believe it's a Gen 2. I upgraded the stock. I put a different rail on it, put a muzzle brake on it, modified the gas block. The rifle to the right is actually a buddy of mine. What we've got on both these rifles are 18-inch 308 barrels. They're a government style profile. The one at the bottom has a Timney trigger in it, which we are going to actually remove and shoot it with the stock trigger that came with the rifle for grouping, and then when we work on the build, we'll figure out other things, what's going to make it shoot better. What I plan to do is two completely different uppers. Both of them are 20-inch barrels. One is in 308 and one is in 6.5 Creedmoor. And then I've got a variety of different parts. So for each upper, some of the parts are going to be exactly the same. The upper receiver itself, the small parts for the receiver, the charging handle, the gas tube, and the handguard are all going to be the same between the 308 and 6.5 Creedmoor uppers. I do not remember all the brands for these individual parts, and they're not marked on the individual pieces or on the packaging. I'd have to go back and look. But they were affordable. Some of them are clearance deals, some of them are scratch and dent. So they pretty much cheap parts. So some of the parts that are going to vary between the two different builds are the adjustable gas block and the VG6 muzzle brake that I'm going to put on the 6.5 Creedmoor. I went with an adjustable gas block because a lot of people recommended it for the 6.5. Not as necessary for the 308 from what I understand, especially since it's a 20-inch barrel. It's pretty standard. The barrel profiles ended up being different. So the 6.5 Creedmoor has a .936 under the gas block, and the 308 is going to have a standard diameter. For the 308, we've got just a 2-port muzzle brake, standard gas block. That gas block is going to be a little too fat to fit under the handguard, so I might have to modify it. For the barrels, we've got a Ballistic Advantage 6.5 Creedmoor and an Aero Precision 308. Both of them are 20 inches in length. At the time of purchasing the 308, I did not realize that the profile on the Aero Precision barrels are different than the Ballistic Advantage. So you've got a nice fat profile here, and then you've got the standard 7.6, whatever the diameter is. That's why I don't have the exact same gas block for both of them. And I couldn't get the adjustable gas block with the smaller diameter at the sell price that I got the larger one for. Now for the optics that I'll be using, I'm going with the Arken Optics SH4 Gen 2 in mil. I've got 3 different Arken scopes. One's in the mil on the way. I have the one that's out of the box right now, which is mil. The one inside the box is an MOA, which I'm going to put on a different rifle. And the one in the mil is their SH4J, which has Japanese glass. It was on sale, so I grabbed one of those because I wanted both of the upper builds to have pretty much the same scope. The only difference is going to be that the glass is manufactured in Japan on one of them and the glass on the other one is made in China. Overall, heard really good things about these scopes. That's why I bought 3 of them without testing any of them out. I also got them on a really good deal that's no longer available. For the 18-inch upper, though, I will probably put an LVPO on it. I've got a 1:8 from Vortex that I had in Syria with me, and I think that'd be a good fit for this rifle. It's currently on something else, but I want to switch them out. And then I'll keep this upper more for close to medium engagement purposes, and then the build that I'm working on I want to do for precision shooting, so 300 yards and further. So one of the first things I want to do with this build is take the upper receivers and see how well they fit to the different lower receivers. The less play, the better. If there's significant play between the receivers, then I will come up with a solution for that. I got a couple ideas. You don't really see this kind of thing very much in videos, and most people will say it doesn't matter, but it's something that I want to play with. Also, with the optics, we are going to lap the rings. Now, the riser mount is, it's a pretty cool mount, but whenever I took it out of the box and put the tops of the rings on, you can't really tell what's front and what's back, and they're not perfect, so they weren't machined as one piece. So we're going to lap the rings for each of the mounts whenever we install the scopes. We'll tune in the gas blocks for the 6.5 Creedmoor. We're going to bed the barrels into the receiver as well as true the face of the upper receiver so that we get a nice square fit. We're going to shoot them with a standard mil-spec style trigger, and then we will shoot them with the Timney, and we're going to see what's going to give us the best groups. Hopefully I'll have some really good ammo to choose from, as well as some not so great options, just to see how well the barrels do with different ammunition. So starting out, I'll show you what I was meaning about the fit for the uppers and lowers. On this first rifle, this is Palmetto State Armory. The lower and upper were purchased separately because you get a discount apparently because there's less taxes that they have to pay. And I don't know if that's a state thing or a federal thing. So if you buy the whole rifle, it costs you more money, not because they have to fit it together themselves, but because they have to pay more taxes. Where if you buy the upper receiver and have it shipped to your house, and then you ship the lower receiver to an FFL, you save a few bucks. So that's what I did. And so straight from the factory, I don't know if you can see that. You can definitely see the gap between the receivers. And you can probably hear the movement. So there's quite a bit of play in this. Now with this rifle, I bought it secondhand. I can only assume that the person did the same. They bought the upper receiver separate from the lower receiver. And this one actually it still has some play, but it has significantly less play than the first one. So we're going to see if putting these different receivers on together gives us any different results. For this next segment, we're going to see how the different uppers fit with the 2 lowers available. I've gone and marked everything. Lowers I've marked 1 and 2. Uppers I've marked 1, 2, 3, and 4, with 1s being originally the same firearm, 2s being originally the same firearm. And then 3 and 4 will be the uppers that we're going to be building. All right, so 1, good amount of play. Not extremely excessive, but definitely enough that you want to do something with it. Less play, but still play. Quite a bit of play. Feels to be more than with upper number 1. And then less play than 3 and 1. Feels about the same amount of play as upper number 2. Less play for this upper on number 2 lower than on number 1 lower. Feels about the same with number 2 upper as number 1 upper on number 2 lower. Still a significant amount of play on 3. Almost very little play with number 4. So the conclusion with the uppers and lowers is that all uppers fit better on lower number 2 than lower number 1. The next step will probably be taking lower number 2, adding the stock from 1, the trigger from 1. We'll keep that grip on there and use lower number 2 as the lower for the project. Lower number 1 will go to upper number 2, and then that'll go back to my buddy if he ever comes and gets it. So the next step in this project will be essentially to strip all the parts that I want from lower number 1, so the stock, buffer tube, and the trigger, and then put it into lower number 2. Lower number 2 will keep the grip, and then all the parts that we take off of 2 we'll put on 1, and then assemble lower number 1 with upper number 2 to have a basic rifle setup.
See you later, Goose.